Duty howdy everyone, Wamboo here, and today we're diving into some Megamans. Oh yeah, these games, you guys. This franchise is definitely one of my franchises that I know nothing about. Yeah, I don't have any attachment to any of these games. I played Mega Man X briefly after watching Egoraptor's sequelitis, but other than that, I know nothing about Mega Man, which is a problem, considering I'm supposed to talk about one of the most infamously terrible games in the franchise. So coming on board to help me out is Fanfickle's resident Mega Man X, Pert, Morkez Marihser.
Hello, YouTube! Oh, and Wambu, I guess. Thanks for having me, but really, I'm not sure if it's worth all the bother. I won't be taking up all that much of your time.
Oh, really?
See, Mega Man 7 might not be as good as the other games in the series, but it still follows the formula pretty well and does improve on the graphics from 5 and 6.
Oh, well, that's great and all, but we're not talking—
At the very least, the platforming carried well from the NES to the SNES, and at best, the bosses from this game are pretty iconic and memorable.
Alright, fair enough, but the thing is—
Plus, it was the first game to feature Bass, one of the most epic anti-heroes in gaming to this—
Morkez, we get it. Mega Man 7 is hated more than it deserves to be, but that's not what the episode is about.
Eh?
We're doing Mega Man X7.
Come again?
Yeah, come here. Look at the name of the video. See? X7. Morkez?
Oh.
Mork?
Let's rip this maverick of a game to shreds!
Now, before we begin, there is something I should explain to you all. Originally, I was going to write this the same way I did for Shadow the Hedgehog, where I separately talked about its presentation, story, and gameplay. This game, however, was so special that I decided we should all just experience it together. We're running through it from beginning to end. Think of it as a journey of sorts. Not that one. That one's good. So with all that said, take it away, Mork.
Where to begin with this one? Well, I guess one thing that's important to understand is the context in which X7 was released. Series producer Keiji Inafune originally intended for the X series to reach a climactic conclusion at X5, and it did. But then, awkwardly enough, 4 more games were made. The first of these, X6, unsurprisingly got pretty negative reception, but it was still considered passable by franchise standards. And when it came time to push this dead franchise even further for X7, they weirdly decided to focus not on making the mechanics new and fresh, but rather on making the game 3D, which would be great if it worked. This should indicate to you guys the exact lack of thought we're clearly going to be seeing from this game. So, let's get it started.
So our story starts with these two chums doing some vague illegal thing. It doesn't actually matter, really. All you need to know is that they're 10 seconds away from being killed by bounty hunters.
Shame, really, because they were the most likable characters in the game. It's here that we get introduced to one of our main characters, unfortunately.
Huh. Well, it looks like the Blue Bomber has joined the Navy.
Okay, clearly you did need me here. 1. The term Blue Bomber refers to the original Mega Man, Rock, not X. That is, unless you're referring to multiple Mega Men, then the label would apply. 2. That pun was terrible, and you should feel terrible for even thinking it up. And 3. That's not X. That's the new main character, Axel. X doesn't come into play for a while.
Oh, goody. We do find out what happens to X in the opening narration, however, as it reveals that crimes committed by Mavericks have been on the rise, and another group of Maverick Hunters called Red Alert, named after their leader Red, has been gaining a lot of notoriety. During all this, we learn that X has been doing jack shit. No joke. He actually retired to try and think of a more peaceful solution.
Why must Reploids fight one another? I've had enough violence.
I don't doubt that, but your actions go more along the lines of, I don't feel like doing anything. More on X later, though. We also learned that Axel was a member of Red Alert, but he didn't like their methods, so he left. What were their methods? Well, it's not explained ever, but the story says that Red Alert is a renegade group, so I guess they're the bad guys. Goody.
It's at this point that we finally get into our opening level, and I'm sure a good chunk of you have seen Egoraptor's sequelitis video where he goes in depth about how brilliantly the first X game's opening level, Central Highway, was designed. In this game, however, we're thrown right into laser hell right off the bat. At the very least, the lasers don't do a lot of damage, so you have plenty of time to adjust to the awkward amount of wall jumping and the automatic lock-on system that just does whatever it feels like. There is one other notable mechanic with Axel, and that's his copy shot. If he kills Reploids that are his size with it, then he can copy their forms. This has almost no practicality, though, since the copy shot does barely any damage.
Back on the topic of Central Highway, we get to play that level, this time as 0. And the only word I can use to describe this is pathetic. This level is nothing but a shameful nostalgia kick with nowhere near as good design as the original Central Highway. Maybe if you were playing as X or even Axel, it'd be a bit better. Okay, maybe not in this game. But as Zero, all this level teaches you to do is flail your sword a bunch and hope to win.
Not to mention the nostalgia parts fail because they don't even bother putting in similar music or having the enemies move or act remotely the same way.
So after a depth perception nightmare, Axel and Zero run into one another.
Are you stupid? You're in danger if you just stand there. Get a move on!
Are you connected to this incident?
Incident? What are you talking about?
What do you mean, what are you talking about? Do you think the city is supposed to look like this?
You mean the damage or the graphics?
Both.
More importantly, we have a main character that sounds like Veronica Taylor with a dump truck shoved up her nose. Not helping is the fact that Axel is a pretty obnoxious character.
You've got some explaining to do.
Okay, I'll tell you everything, but later. Right now, I have to take care of that freak. You're Zero, so you can handle this, right?
Wait, Axel, didn't you just say that you were gonna handle this? You little dickhead.
Hey, maybe Zero's gonna point out that he's a hypocritical moron.
Oh, this has become a real pain. I want a full explanation when this is all over.
I spoke too soon.
I don't even think he was supposed to say that line. I think maybe the voice actor legitimately has no clue what's happening in this scene.
I want a full explanation when this is all over.
On the plus side, this is the debut of a mechanic that's actually pretty smart. If you're tired of playing as one character in a level, you can bring in a second one with their own health bar and swap back and forth between them. It was implemented very well in X8, and here it's actually one of the few things that allows you to beat any individual level in the first place.
So together, Zero and Axel fight Mega Scorpia, which even by first boss standards is pretty pathetic. This is what the designers want players to do. And this is what most of them actually do.
After getting through that, Zero takes Axel back to HQ where he gets to meet X. Here we see Axel, Zero, and Cygnus, not important who he is, talking about Red Alert while X yells at people who actually want to do things. And all the while, we get some more beautiful voice acting.
Do you realize how much damage your internal bickering has caused?
I apologize for that, but I had to leave.
Ah, such a sweet choir of pain.
But then, out of the blue, they get contacted by Red, who's a little upset that Axel left, so he decides to challenge the Maverick Hunters to a duel because that's obviously the natural reaction to this, and like any believable bounty hunter, he lets the Mavericks he's captured go for the sake of a pointless competition.
I'm sure you won't mind if we use the Mavericks that we've captured so far.
Keep that line in mind, folks, because we're going to get back to it later. At first, they tell Axel to just go back to Red Alert so that they don't need to bother with this dumb competition. That'd be the same as releasing a captured criminal, but that doesn't matter apparently. Ultimately, they decide to take care of Red Alert themselves anyway.
Right. These aren't run-of-the-mill criminals. They won't listen to reason. And even if Axel did go back, which he won't, would they stop their misdeeds? I don't think so.
If you haven't noticed already, Zero is the only voice of reason in this entire group. Maybe because he's doing a bad Batman impression.
Zero, you're my hero.
My hero, Zero.
Axel, die in a fire.
So it's at this point that we can actually get into the real bulk of the game.
Do we have to?
We're already here. It's too late to quit.
In typical Mega Man fashion, we're thrown into the stage selection screen. And this time, there's a tutorial for how to use it! And everything else!
Finally, a game that appeals to my complete ineptitude.
Alia is nothing short of a blabbermouth in this game and will try and give you hints and guides all throughout the game, except for when you're actually confused on what the hell to do. And then when the levels are done, it gets worse.
There is some good news in this, however, Mork. If you're like me and you're tired of hearing Alia speak, you can walk right past her tutorials, but that doesn't stop her from trying.
Can you hear me, Axel?
Nope, totally can't hear you. Not at all. No, ma'am.
So now that we know how to use our Wheel of Torture, we can select a stage. And here's where the game forces you to make the most difficult decision ever. Who do you want to hate first?
Oh, and there's so many choices. There's the monkey guy, the kangaroo guy, the hyena...
No, not him. No, not him. Just no, and no.
Okay then, let's go with this guy. He's a pig. I like him.
Right, Borski.
I take it back. His name sucks. I hate him.
Ah, sweet innocent Wamboo. You're about to hate this way more.
It's a ride chaser level.
And we're at the races, ladies and germs. Will our intrepid Maverick Hunters manage to find bombs along the track in 2 minutes? On your marks, get set, slow!
Come on, step it up!
Even after lowering my standards of vehicle sections, this level is nothing short of a pain. The car accelerates really fast, but unfortunately its handling is garbage. So if you go too fast, you pretty much lose control of the vehicle. But if you don't accelerate enough, you won't make the goal in time. Plus the fact that you take so much damage in this game in general makes it really easy to die.
Also, for some reason, Zero takes more damage here than Axel does from pretty much anything. I suppose they had to legitimize the newcomer somehow.
At the very least, this level is mercifully short, which I cannot say about the other ones in the game.
And then we get to the boss.
Oh, you brat! I ought to take the likes of you and...
Oh god, Pumbaa has more dignity than this.
I take it back yet again, this guy is hilarious, though he loses points for being a lying shit.
A duel! Just you and me, yeah!
And a whole bunch of runner bombs in the background, but they don't count. Learn to count, game.
This fight is stupid. It's not the hardest in the game, it's not the easiest either, but it's just incredibly stupid. Part of that is thanks to Ride Borski himself, who's really hamming up his performance.
Holy moly! Holy moly! Holy moly!
He sounds like a cross between Greedo and a 5-year-old playing with toy race cars. And he acts just as intelligent as that might suggest when he decides that rolling spiked wheels are what you use to slice and dice.
Slice and dice!
Ugh.
There really isn't much to this guy. He throws spike wheels and tries to drive into you. If anything is going to trip you up in this fight, it's going to be the spinning lasers, because stupid. But other than that, nothing too difficult.
Once you beat him, the level ends and you get his weapon. A watered-down version of Wheel Gators from X2 for everyone.
This weapon sucks. It barely works, even on the boss you're supposed to use it for. Speaking of which...
Snipe Anteator!
It's time for the game show that's sweeping the nation! I like to call it the Epileptic Seizure Frenzy! But most of you will probably know it as Snipe Anteator stage.
Epileptic seizure? What are you even talking about? Oh.
Looks like we can kill 2 birds with 1 charge shot here. The level design in general doesn't just suck for abnormal stages like Borski's, but for ones that should be normal like this one. Everyone moves so freaking slowly, the enemies take forever to kill, and abilities unique to each character are impossible to use.
Not only that, but this stage is impossible to navigate, what with all the pylons that flip the stage upside down, and the barely visible walls, but also, what is with the enemies in this stage? Samurais? Cyber stoneheads? Bees? Why bees? Did they seriously just cobble together a bunch of assets from other levels into this one horrid mess?
Of course they did, but that's not the worst part. The worst part is the boss, Snipe Anteator, with an O. The hell?
I see data buried deep within you. Is it memories of the future or false images of the past?
Ah, so we got a wise guy, eh? Well, at least I know how to spell my own name. Yeah, take that, you fuck.
So why do you think I'm here?
Know thine enemy, is it? You're a real pain, geezer.
Takes one to know one. Ugh, doesn't matter. On to the fight, and oh boy, do we have a bad one.
Ladies and gentlemen, without exaggeration, this is one of the worst boss fights I have ever played in the game. It starts off okay, pretty easy even. The stage is obviously unfinished, but it's pretty manageable.
And then all remaining hope is shredded to bits when the missiles, drones, and tail whipping comes out. Then it becomes a fustercluck of hell.
Missiles, lasers, and mines. You know, like a sniper.
The recommended weapon is useless, and the whole thing is just an endurance fight / dodging fest you most likely can't win at all. Between Zero's double jumping and Axel's rolling, forgot to mention that's a thing because shut up, it takes a lot of lucky timing to win this fight.
Assuming Snipey here ever gets into range, considering he can just stay at the bottom of the stage if his AI feels the need. Look at him, sitting down there, just chilling, taunting you, spelling his name with an O!
Dude, let it go! Besides, you're spelling your own name weirdly right now, so who are you to talk?
Hey, at least mine's a pun. This is just stupid.
Through grueling effort, you do manage to beat him and get perhaps the best weapon in the game. And then comes something we skipped over earlier. You may have noticed some Reploids hanging around like a citizen in peril from LEGO Batman 2, and there are 16 in each level. Admittedly, this isn't new, we saw it in X6, but here it's much more aggravating, Because trust me, you need to rescue every single one for your own sanity.
Some of them are easy to find, but there's some that will just die in an instant from spawning in the level, and once they die, they're gone for good.
Although, surprisingly, none of the ones on a freaking racetrack are capable of dying, and you run over them to save them. What is this, Mario Kart?
Some of them don't even look like they need rescuing. Dude, just let go of the fucking branch.
And then there are those who are just standing around. So it seems more like a kidnapping than a rescue, but eh.
But enough of that for now. We got ourselves a bird to take care of.
Win! Crowrang!
Okay, the names in this game all suck. I don't know why, but from X5 and on, they decided to stop using just 2 words in a name, which kinda made sense, and instead use 3 words or a butchered word. I mean, Wind, Crowrang? Really? You couldn't have just called him Wind Crow, or Boomer Crow, or Howard the Duck, because even that would be an improvement.
And right from the get-go, his level is about as stupid as his name.
Ah! It's Pixar's Planes! Abandoned ship! Oh, wait, that's how you die in this stage. Which is very easy to do given the lack of proper depth perception.
Or traction, for that matter. Though, I'll admit, things do get more manageable as you go along. You go from the outside of a giant airship to the inside, and while it's less perilous, it's still pretty confusing.
If you ask me, this is where they got the inspiration for the areas in Command Mission. But still, it's not all that bad if you don't mind moving at a snail's pace and constantly having your lock-on go to the projectiles thrown at you instead of the enemies throwing them. Seriously, the lock-on system is freaking glitchy.
There's also a few leaps of faith, but relatively speaking, it's not all that bad. However, there are more bees for some reason. After getting through that part, you fight the boss, on the outside of the ship again. The hell?
So we went from plane hopping to the airship hull to the inside of the airship, and now we're on the hull again. How does this make any sense? The halberd was more straightforward than this. Just go ahead and face Crowrang.
I want to see.
Wait, really? That's it? I don't want to pick on a blind guy.
No, he's not blind. He's just being cryptic, see?
If the Reploid that fascinated him so was really all that great.
It sounds like he's talking about Red, but he could be talking about someone else. Ooh.
The way it takes place on a small 2D platform is a little disorienting at first, and his boomerangs are a pain in the ass and make no sense, but he's really not that bad, especially if you've gotten Snipe Anteator's weapon at this point. If not, well, good luck, you're gonna need it.
How does this fight make sense? Simple! By working nearly the same way as Baby Bowser and Yoshi's Island, thanks to the sniper missile and the lock-on system. All you other Mavericks better be taking notes. But there is one other interesting thing that Crowrang brings up that is less pleasant.
And what's that?
You never change, do you?
There's a reason Axel and Crowrang act all buddy-buddy before the fight starts. If you finish the level as Axel, we learn through a cutscene that he and the Mavericks were actually good friends from working together in Red Alert.
Huh.
And unlike Maverick Hunter X and Sigma, there is nothing to indicate that the Mavericks ever worked for Red in the past, aside from them saying so right now. But here's the juicy part of it all. Didn't Red say he'd duel using the Mavericks they've captured so far? I mean, there's nothing throughout the entire game to support the idea that Red is lying through his teeth when he says this.
I'm sure you won't mind if we use the Mavericks that we've captured so far.
So how can these guys have possibly been friends with Axel before? They can't be lying either, since Axel goes right along with what they're saying.
Well, maybe those aren't the Mavericks he's talking about.
Then where are the Mavericks he's talking about?
The smaller enemies you fight during the stages, perhaps?
Well, that doesn't make any sense, considering that we've seen them actively helping Red Alert like in the fight with Borski. How do you explain that?
Easily. The writing is shit.
Exactly!
Ugh, rotten hell game.
Vanishing Gungaroo!
Welp, on to Vanishing Gungaroo.
This level isn't really the worst, but it is probably the least interesting. The whole gimmick is that you get to use ride armors, which isn't a bad idea on the surface, but as this game shows constantly, you can always ruin a good concept with bad execution. Because the mechs are slow, big, and somewhat lacking in range, the the mere act of getting close enough to attack will often result in taking damage.
And of course, the awkward robot controls are matched with lazy level design. The only real difficulty of this comes from the fact that the designers crammed a bunch of enemies in dark rooms. And even during the parts where you can actually see what's in front of you, the placement of obstacles and enemies in this level is just kind of scattershot. Maybe if I was on foot, this would be less bad, but as the robot, I can bypass most of this easy peasy.
Assuming you even know where you're supposed to be going, and don't spend the entire time bouncing pointlessly on the bomb fan things. And then when you finally figure out where you're supposed to go, you get into a giant arena of confusion and terrible camera angles against other mechs.
Bottom line, this level isn't hard, but it's still pretty awful and incredibly confusing. Now for the boss.
How do you figure, Axel? Who'd have thought I'd turn out stronger than you?
Wow, Vanishing Gungaroo sure sounds like a little bitch, wouldn't you agree, Axel? Well, at least his name is a little more understandable. He's a kangaroo and he uses guns, right?
Nope, he punches and kicks you.
Huh, well, does he vanish?
Nope, he punches and kicks you.
Well, fuck me.
Well, hey, if it hasn't been destroyed yet, we actually have a use for the ride armor now. Kinda. Honestly, you can just as easily destroy his mech on foot. He hasn't got much HP, and he's really easy to dodge. Now, once you hit the second phase... the fairness leaves the arena.
Did they seriously get the voice actress to make the whooshing sounds?
Vanishing Gungaroo can be pretty annoying, what with his bouncing around everywhere and the player having to constantly adjust the camera in order to stay focused on him. But he does have quite a glaring weakness. A disorder of sorts.
What's the diagnosis, Dr. Marihser?
It is Spark Mandrill syndrome, Dr. Pooh. The symptoms are very severe and are known to give the bosses the inability to react before they can be struck once again with their weakness.
In case you didn't understand him through that accent, basically you can stunlock Vanishing Gungaroo using the weapons from Wind Crowrang.
It is a pretty easy way to deal with him, but keep in mind, you have to repeatedly time it right, and even then it's pretty tedious. Plus, you'll be hearing a lot of whatever this sound is. This is just annoying. Can we get Ryu in here? Hadouken! Thank you! I could look at a crossover like this all day. Wink, wink.
On the bright side, after you finally kill him, you unlock one of the better weapons in the game, power-wise, so I guess he was good for something.
Now let's see. How many stages have we beaten so far? 4 stages?! Go back to the levels! Get any Reploids we missed! Now!
But...
No buts! We must correct one of the game's biggest idiocies! Finally, we've gotten enough Reploids to unlock X. All 60 friggin' 4 of them.
You okay there, Mork?
No one is if they're playing this crap. You explain this, I need to clear my lungs.
So, how do I explain the choice to make the titular character an unlock? I don't know. It's stupid. Now, some of you may be thinking, if X in this game is such a hyper-pacifist, wouldn't having him fight create kind of a disconnect with his character? And you're absolutely right.
Zero, do you read me? I'm going too. Take me with you.
X?
Okay, do as you please.
You whiny hypocrites! And Zero, show some support!
But thankfully, the creators thought of a solution to this, having X yell stop it and scream like a sissy every time he fires his gun.
Stop it!
See? He totally still doesn't approve of this violence, you guys. I mean, just look at how hard it is to convince him otherwise.
Stop it! Stop it right there! Do you know how hard we worked to rebuild this world?
Shut up! Don't order me around, you pile of scrap metal!
Shoot, looks like there's no choice but to fight.
At this point, even X probably finds his own ideology to be bullshit.
I'm back. Just needed to wipe the dirt off my dignity. Where are we?
Well, X just joined the group.
Indeed he has, and he is weak as hell. Between the life tanks you pick up in the levels and the Reploids whose upgrades Alia has explained to you each and every single time you want to use one, the other two are both extremely powered up, leaving X fragile, low-powered, and unable to hold his own remotely as well.
Plus, he can't double jump like Zero, hover, or copy shot like Axel, and his armor parts are not easy to find. Sure, if you go through the trouble of powering him up, he can hold his own, but it's much faster to just do what I did and stick with Axel and Zero.
I, on the other hand, wanted to cover my butt for the harder areas later on, so I went through the trouble, which led me to the helmet capsule, which just draws in fallen items faster, and the armor capsule, which just gives X the temperamental Giga Crash. Terrific.
You know what? You get all that stuff while I stare into my reflection and cry a little.
Sure, bud.
Soldier Stonekong!
Next, we have Soldier Stonekong. His level, while not being very good, is actually a somewhat pleasant surprise. For once, we have a level that's entirely in 2D instead of haphazardly switching dimensions between loading screens. That's not to say it isn't without its blatant flaws.
If you want to get all the Reploids in this level, you're going to be relying on Axel's copy shot a ton, which is obnoxious given that it takes like 20 charges to finally kill a basic enemy with it. As well, we see the return of Ruins Men from Sting Chameleon stage, and of course, more bees!
Despite how annoying some of the enemies are, though, I'm tempted to call this level the best one in the game. Again, it's entirely in 2D, and despite the poor aesthetics and weird camera at parts, it actually looks and feels like an X-Series level. Congratulations, Stonekong! You win the award for the least horrendously terrible level!
Even though it still sucks. The giant totem pole heads are confusing, and there are spikes everywhere.
Even the good stuff sucks. The leg parts found in this level are some of the most uninspired things ever. X doesn't get to do double jumps or rocket jumps or anything. What he gets to do is glide. Whee!
Yeah, but it gets particularly bad when you reach the mini-boss of 8 flying totem pole heads. You have to shoot until they're all white, and their weak spot is inside their mouths. This gives the Giga Crash its very rare opportunity to be useful, and it's still annoying regardless.
Get past that, and you finally reach George of the Junkyard himself.
Let our swords speak for us. Only the victors will be viewed as righteous in the eyes of history.
Hey, you're the only one with a sword there, buddy.
Maybe if he was talking to Zero, this would make sense. But, because he's saying it to X, I just like to believe that Stonekong is a moron who just believes that every weapon is a sword.
What is this? It's a sword!
What are these? They're both swords.
And what about that one? It's... okay, that's still a chicken gun.
Stonekong is an odd boss in that theoretically you could deal the most damage to him by using Gungaroo's weapon, which is literally called Explosion. But to minimize damage to yourself, it might be best not to, and stick to either charge shots or the G-launcher that Axel gets with this weapon as a package deal.
Stonekong is a very easy fight, explosion or not. His attacks are ridiculously easy to avoid, and aside from when he jumps into the background, he pretty much consistently leaves himself vulnerable. You'd think he'd be harder to hit given his shield, but nope, that thing is useless. As Zero, Hidangeki is also pretty useful, but to be totally honest, I just shot him in the butt a lot until he died.
An absolute zero, I'm nobody's hero.
Anyway, what do we earn from this guy? A sword! A shield. The heck? It's not even like rolling shield. It just floats in front of you and blocks smaller lasers, lightly damaging anything it touches. Even the proto shield from Powered Up makes more sense than this.
On to the next level.